Welcome to the Warband, a World of Warcraft podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Swaglock, and with me today is our other host, Chicken, but also we have a special guest. Yeah, we got a special guest on the episode today with us for episode 10. We're so excited to be here with all of you, 10 episodes in, and so we brought in a special guest with us, our very incredible, wonderful, amazing Guildmaster, Spell. Welcome in, Spell.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Such an honor to be here for the 10th episode. It's crazy to think that you guys already have recorded 10 episodes.
Well, I know, and it's crazy because I didn't even know I could count to double digits. I just thought single digits were as far as you could go, right? I don't know. I played Pokemon. They only taught me how to count to 3, so...
Oh my gosh.
That's a reference that Chicken would get, and probably none of our other listeners. So if you got it, leave a comment. Let us know. But I can only count in Spanish. That's the trade-off.
Okay, come on. That's messed up.
Spell. It's a reference to 3 Pokemon in Pokemon, Legendary Birds, Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres.
Okay.
Yeah. So, that's okay. I don't know why I have to explain this joke. I'm
You're
not
too
that
nervous,
funny.
Man.
If you have to explain a joke, though, you know what they say. It means it's a good joke.
Yeah, it means it's a really smart joke. Super smart.
It's an excellent joke.
Or just a really niche reference that most people will not get.
I'd say the second one, yeah.
But yeah, Spell, we're so excited to have you on here. You have done some incredible things, not just running one of the biggest guilds on our server, but really there's a lot that you do in WoW that you've achieved, but also achieved in real life. And maybe one day you get to brag about that a little bit. But today, this is the WoW podcast, and I want to brag about
the WoW podcast.
Well, it's the Warband podcast, but it's about WoW, which is good enough. Anyways, kind of jumping in. We usually start off, Spell, kind of talking through what we've been up to that week, whether IRL or in WoW. Usually it's more on the WoW side. I have been so busy this week that it's been kind of hard to find some time to just jump on WoW, but we are, as a guild, we are pushing Queen Ansarek on Heroic, which has been a lot of fun. I think we just had our 4th week on Ansarek, so pushing week 5. But it looks like week 5 is the week we're going to get it. We're into phase 3 now. Things are feeling good. The team is feeling really, really tight. And so I've been trying to just get gear, get crests from Mythic Plus this week to kind of upgrade the gear that I have. And it's been fun, but also, when you push Mythic Plus a little extra hard for a week, it's really fun to do it. But then also, you get more of those moments where you make one pull and wipe and the whole group leaves, and that never feels great. So it's kind of best of both worlds, I guess.
You're bringing back flashbacks, man.
Flashbacks. You got the PTSD.
This week was bad. Oh my goodness, it was rough. Hey,
Yep.
I didn't think I was going to talk about this. Oh, go ahead.
Chicken? Have you been pugging also, Chicken?
A little bit, but it's just too rough. I just can't. I can't pull myself to do it anymore.
Come do my keys, man. Come DPS for me.
Honestly, I probably should. It's just hard, Yeah, you know me.
Retire from tanking dungeons and come DPS.
Yeah, I really need to do that. So that sounds like you had a pretty decent week though in WoW.
It was good though. We definitely got some good dungeons in. I think I did a bunch of 9s. I've done 10s. I have not timed any 10s. So, I take that for what it is. I think most of my keys right now are timed on 9s, and
Gotcha.
so I think I just need to be a little bit more coordinated for those 10s with some groups that are put together intentionally for that.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
As a key noob. What does a 10 equate to in old key standards?
Yes, yeah. So a 10 would have been a 20 in previous keys.
Okay.
But it's also
high.
but it's also kind of not at the same time. So when you hit,
not even close. Yeah.
well, so it's supposed to be the difficulty of a previous 20, except when you hit a 10 now, it adds whichever alternating affix you didn't have before. So if it's a tyrannical week, it'll add in fortified. So you have tyrannical and fortified. If it's a fortified week, now you have tyrannical, and so you have both. So either way, you have both tyrannical and fortified at a 10 level. And so
Mhm.
you have the natural increase going up to 10, but then you also have like this weird like, but also everything's even more harder. So I just said more harder. Rip.
Whoa.
Spell, what have you been up to this week though? Chick and I obviously just run dungeons and we're little dungeon goblins, but what have you been up to?
I've been having major FOMO because I've been traveling for work this week, so no
Oh,
gaming
no.
for me. Mm-hmm.
Any
so
beautiful
I've been
sights?
catching up this weekend. I was in Nashville, great city.
Oh,
Loved
they got
it.
good chicken. Yeah.
They do.
Whoa.
They do.
Don't talk
Actually-
about me like that.
Okay, so actually funny story.
Obviously
Yeah?
not better than present company, but the chicken was pretty good.
They do. They have good chicken. Funny story. So back in the day, Chicken used to stream on Twitch too. I don't know if you knew this, but Chicken was also a Twitch streamer. And one of his biggest streams on Twitch was him and I in the back of a car driving to Nashville.
That was.
we were just car streaming. I don't remember what sparked that. But that was goated.
Is there footage? Where are the VODs of this? I want to watch that.
We can probably find the VOD. We'd have to look for it.
Nice.
We'll hunt it down.
Or
We'll get it on
it
Discord.
might have got shadow banned because of who was in it. Whew. Can't talk about those days. Whew.
Oh, who was in it?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there's like. I'm pretty sure there might have been like clips of Satan in it. Actually, I don't know how. Just like came out of nowhere.
Yeah, we could.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, moving on. We got some cool stuff coming up in WoW right now, right? So I think the 30th anniversary event is coming up. Have you guys heard about that?
Mm-hmm. I saw the Twitch drops that I'm excited about.
Yeah, the Twitch drops really interesting, but I don't know exactly how they work. I was hearing different information, whether the Twitch drops, it looks like the Twitch drops apply for everybody, but at the same time, it also looks like the Twitch drops only apply if you watch specifically the official channel. So I don't know. Yeah,
that was my understanding as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But also it says, though, the start is November 13th, but the end time is December 11th. So I don't know if they're streaming a bunch on the Twitch channel and YouTube and TikTok channels through that time, or that part's confusing to me, if that makes sense. But the drops themselves are actually kind of sick.
Mm-hmm. The mount looks nice. I think there's a war saber.
Yeah. There's a saber and a warg, I think. Or like a war wolf, which are pretty sick. They're pretty sick. I think you get some rumble. There's like a Sylvanas that you can get in rumble. Or maybe it's just the avatar. I don't fully know.
Talking about Sylvanas, did you check the trading post?
Dude, I got the armor. And now it's like on like half my characters. Dude, it brings back those Wrath vibes.
Yes. It looks good. Mm-hmm. It looks good.
Oh, it's crazy nice. Yeah. I like them bringing back these old models of like armors and things. I'm still sad we never got an official like usable Frostmourne weapon. I get the lore reason why, because as players we shouldn't have that power, and the weapon itself has that power. But as a Death Knight, I want Frostmourne.
Yeah, that's fair.
Is there a Frostmourne effect for your weapon?
I think there is actually.
Mm-hmm.
There might be a Frostmourne effect, but I mean, I think in Shadowlands they added back in the model, like an updated model from like, what was it, the Sword of 1,000 Truths from South Park. They had the updated model. That's kind of Frostmourne-esque, but it's still not quite. It's not quite there. So I don't know if you ever watched the episode of South Park, the WoW one.
I have. I loved it.
Yeah, so the sword that they have in there, they end up adding into the game as a real weapon. But they gave it a different name. I don't recall the name. And then Shadowlands, they just added a newer model version of it, which is pretty cool.
I get, though, as a DK, why a Frostmourne would call to you, and you kind of want to wield it. So I get it.
It does. But also, okay, so hot take. Frostmourne is kind of a small sword. Like, it's actually, like, when you see Frostmourne, like, in Arthas's hand, it's kind of dinky looking.
That's fair. I hadn't noticed. I'll have to check.
Like, if I ordered like I know one of our guildmates has it, but like a full size like Frostmourne to hang on the wall. I'd probably be like, this is awesome. I love this sword. But then when you like see it, because Arthas is like a big character model, and then when you see it in his hand, it kind of looks small. Like the sizing of it, it feels like a one-handed sword, I think, when he holds it. Mm-hmm. And because it feels like a one-handed sword and he doesn't have anything in his other hand, it just kind of like, you're kind of like, that's your weapon? That's all you got? That's what you're bringing to the fight? I don't know.
Well,
I think about that stuff.
You did say he's big. I mean, I do play a gnome, so, I mean, relative size, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What?
You would look awesome as a gnome with Frostmourne. Mm-hmm. We need to make
that pretty.
Yeah, we have to pull that off. What race has like the biggest weapon? Is it Blood Elves? I'm trying to think, like body to weapon ratio. I know gnomes, goblins probably have huge weapons, but Blood Elves are in that sweet spot where their weapons are huge, but their bodies are still kind of relatively normal-ish sized. Or am I the only one who thinks about this?
What about
you? Are definitely
Torns. Yeah, but their Torns are just big all around, but their weapons I don't think are. Now you guys are gonna start thinking about it. Now you're gonna be like going through and like transforming to like all the different races, and you're like, oh my gosh, Swag is right. This race has huge weapons compared to their body size.
Oh my gosh.
Well, because I was thinking of totems, right? I remember having 2 guildies that were comparing their totems.
Dude, yeah.
And I thought one of them was a Tauren.
I might race swap my shaman back to Tauren because I do miss having the totem. I think I race swapped back because I ended up using a shield and a one-hander, and then I couldn't use the totem anymore.
Oh.
Huh.
So I got sad.
My question back to you then is, in this game, what image of a weapon is like the ultimate image? The transmog, the one weapon that is above all other weapons for you?
Yeah, that's actually a really complicated question. So it goes back. Actually, there's actually a movie that like inspired this. Because when you're a kid, you're like watching all these like fantasy characters and they're fighting and they got these like sick weapons. And I remember as a kid just being like so in awe as I'm watching this movie, right? And I see the hero step onto the screen, Stanley Yelnats. From the classic movie Holes, shovel in hand, right? And when he and he's just digging holes, right? And at the end of the movie, when they who did they hit? Right? Is it Mr. Guy? They hit Mr. Guy with the shovel and knock him out. And that's when I said, that's the weapon I want. I want a shovel.
Oh no, Mr. Sir, that was his
Sir,
name.
yeah, Mr. Sir. Spell. Have you ever seen Holes?
No, I haven't.
We'll save it for
I can tell that. Yeah, we should. I can tell your listeners that you are the person that has made the shovel iconic in World of Warcraft.
Oh yeah, the shovel is a beautiful weapon. I'm so glad that they added like 3 more shovel transmogs this expansion.
Oh my gosh.
Like I'm pretty sure that was exclusively for me. That was a gift to me from Blizzard, and I'm loving it. Call me
Chris.
McDonald's.
Thank you, Chris.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I saw my friend Chris Metzen, hooking me up with that shovel mog. But we're talking about the 30th anniversary event. It sounds like they want to do something big with it, right? Because they're trying to offer rewards for us to watch this thing. So I want to, just out of curiosity, before we dive into some of our deeper topics today, if you were to guess, if you were to take a shot in the dark, because we really have no clue, if you were to take a shot in the dark at what could be announced for this 30th anniversary event, what do you think they want to talk about? What do you think they're so excited to announce?
Oof, that's a hard one.
Because this is taking place during that BlizzCon time period, right? Because right now we'd be gearing up, or maybe we'd be done with BlizzCon already, actually, for the year. So it's roughly around that time. Yeah.
Can I have a selfish answer?
Go for it.
An unrealistic one that I know they'll probably not announce, but I really want them to announce. It's player housing.
Oh yeah. Player housing would be dope.
That would be pretty cool.
My hot take on player housing is if you do player housing, I think everybody always asks for the ability to like go find a house out in the world somewhere and set it up that way. I think the problem with that though is it spreads the player base out too far, kind of like Garrisons did, and then nobody interacts. I think what they should do is they should have player housing set up where like your house is basically accessible from maybe like the main major factions, right? So, or major cities, right? So like Orgrimmar, Stormwind, and then whatever the major city is of that expansion, that like every city has like a house that like is yours, and they're all the same internally, right? Maybe you can choose the model or something of the inside, but like once you walk in, it phases you into it. If people are in your group, it phases them into it, and that way you can have player housing, you can do the decoration, you can set everything up, create this space, but you're also still right by where everybody else is, and so you're not like you're not just like decimating the major city, like you're not removing everybody from it, but you're also though creating player housing that's valuable, because if you put out in the wilderness somewhere, people aren't going to want to go all the way out of the way just to go sit somewhere that is like pretty looking. I mean, maybe sometimes, but they'll want to have access to an auction house, they'll want to be able to do their crafting, they'll want to be able to access the bank and all these other things. And unless you're me dropping $90 on a store mount, you're not going to be able to do that unless they add it to those. But having in the city allows you to have access to all those things and still be around people, but have your player housing. That's my hot take. I'm only
know what? I actually, as you're talking about that, I'm picturing it, and I love that idea. Imagine having like a condo in Valdrakken that then moves to Dornogal.
Yep.
I think that's pretty stellar as an idea.
Yep, and I'm only bringing it up because I know my friend Chris Metzen watches the podcast, and so I figured, if he needed a good idea on how to make that happen. But Chicken, what do you think's coming with the 30th anniversary event?
Yeah, I wish, and this is a pure wish. I know that they're kind of announcing like Plunderstorm coming back, but I really wish they'd just make it like a standalone game. And just ditch the WoW out on it and just make it standalone and just make it less like World of Warcrafty and more just like Warcraft in general. Chef's kiss, that'd be awesome. I just need
another...
like
redo like the game engine and stuff.
Yeah, but like it's very much pirate themed right now.
Okay,
and I don't hate that, but maybe that's what it goes through. But I don't know. I love Plunderstorm, and I know a lot of people would say that it being around only periodically is part of the reason why it gets a lot of attention. But I don't know, if it was around all the time, I feel like I would play it all the time.
Yeah, I do think from what I heard, they're doing something with the rewards. But I agree. I think if it was around all the time though, because I love it and I want to play sometimes and I can't. I do think if it was around all the time though, it would probably die a bit as a game mode. And it'll probably become really difficult to find groups or have any momentum for it. So I'm sure they're doing it sporadically just to keep the excitement for it.
Oh yeah.
I have heard though that they are potentially, I don't know if this is true, this is like third-hand knowledge, making so that any rewards from Plunderstorm this time around can just be bought on the WoW store instead.
Okay.
Which on one hand you're like, oh, dude, more paid stuff, but that also means players who really don't want to do Plunderstorm but have no problem farming all day long can go farm all day long, buy a WoW token, and then get the Plunderstorm stuff. So, right, because I think what happened before, the problem was you had a lot of players, and this is I think the curse of WoW. This is the one of the curses of WoW.
The curse of WoW.
There's 7 curses of WoW. I'm just gonna
never thought I heard you say that.
But one of the curses of WoW is that like. You know that like sometimes you just can't have nice things. Like people ruin nice things.
Dude,
one of the curses of WoW, right, is Blizzard releases this cool new game mode called Plunderstorm, and they almost never give anything to people who like PvP, right? People who like PvP get the shaft in WoW all the time, right? Like you are a third-rate citizen if you play PvP in WoW, or at least you're treated as such. You're treated as such, right? Like you think? Oh, absolutely.
Another hot take.
I mean, yeah. Well,
that is the hottest take I've ever heard.
But what does Blizzard do for PvPers?
You got to be trolling.
No. What does Blizzard do for PvPers?
What do you mean?
Some would say that it is massively geared towards PvPers in terms of balancing and what they make available to them.
I don't know. I feel like they put a lot of work into raids every season. They put a lot of work into dungeons every season, delves and all this and a ton of stuff for PvE. But there's not much that they create new for PvPers, right? And they'll be like, well, we got a new battleground. You got one.
Yeah.
You got one.
That is true. Yeah,
right.
and we have some. I have some guildies. I would agree with you that it's been a while since they've introduced something new for PvP. I think there was a lot of good stuff in BFA, but that feels like the last time. I know that they've done like some PvP islands in Dragonflight. I think there's a PvP zone also in the War Within, but
Yeah.
I might agree slightly with you.
Now,
but
now
I think
you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, they really don't do much. Yeah,
they don't introduce a lot of new stuff, but Plunderstorm was excellent.
Yes, Plunderstorm was awesome. And just to clarify, if you PvP, you're not a third-rate citizen. I just mean it can feel that way when there's not really much content catered to you that's new seasonally, whereas everybody else gets new seasonal content. But what?
I was just gonna say, real quick though, but like, what could they add? And this is purely question, like, and maybe more towards Spell because I know she's a little more into PvP than you are. But like, what can they add? It's like Call of Duty. It's the same game every year. I mean, what could they add, right? I'm just general curiosity.
So in BFA, they had a whole zone called Nazjatar, and there were timed events where people could travel to that zone. It was a complete murder fest, and a lot of fun. And you were just working towards rewards and things like that. And you could get your honor kills. There were quests that you can complete, and you had entire guilds hit that zone. And I think BFA was the last time they did that. Now they still have like the weeklies that you can do today, but it just doesn't have that vibe anymore.
I think that was their last attempt at like big world PvP moments. I remember like, there was a different, because I used to level on PvP servers back in like early WoW, like Classic and BC and Wrath. I leveled on like PvP servers. And so like you'd be leveling and you'd see some of the opposite faction like riding down the road and you're hiding. Like I played a Night Elf, I think.
Oh my gosh.
And I was Shadow Meld. That's what I just assumed Shadow Meld was for. I was like, somebody's coming. Let me hide real quick. I'm only level 12. Like, don't kill me. You're on a mount. That means you're at least level 40, right? Like, and so it world PvP was this beautiful thing. But
that makes sense.
To the Plunderstorm conversation, right? When I say like one of the curses of WoW is like they create this really cool game mode, and then they go, hey, if you like the PvP, we made this for you, and because we put all this work into it, here's some cool rewards you can get from doing this content. And in any other content in WoW, nobody would bat an eye, right? Like people would be like, oh, that's awesome. That dungeon drops gear, right? That delve gives me cool loots. Or if I do this series of hidden quests, I can get a really cool mount, right? Like, and nobody bats an eye at that stuff. But the moment is a PvP event that offers anything rewarding in any capacity, all of a sudden, it was like the complaints were massive. Like
people are pissed.
They were ticked off, and they're like, "What do you mean I have to go PvP to get gear?" And I'm sure some of our listeners may have been in that category. So like, there's no shame if you don't like PvPing. But I think it was, if I'm being honest, I think it was one of those moments where like people were so frustrated over the fact that maybe they had to do something they didn't enjoy in order to get a reward. Rather than just being like, wow, that's cool that they offered something to people who like to PvP. So I think this time around, Blizzard was just like, screw it. If you don't want to PvP, just buy the stuff. Because I think a lot of people were farming it by going in and then running into the storm right away and like dying and then going back and then running to the storm right away and dying.
No way.
Well, what's fascinating about that though is that was like probably honestly probably one of the least effective ways to actually get the points to buy stuff. But people were so afraid of PvP. Like, just so scared of that. I think that's just, they would rather have just died right away and taken longer than have the stress or given somebody the satisfaction of killing them.
Whoa.
But I do think there's an element there, right? Like, WoW's a PvE game. You and I PvP all the time in other games, Chicken. Like, we play Fortnite and
that's true.
And other stuff. So you and I don't think about that much. But I think for a lot of WoW players, right, to lose to another player might feel like they're like flaunting over you or whatnot. But it is an interesting thing to think about.
Comparatively, you guys have PvP'd in other games. How does WoW compare in terms of PvP?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I mean, a lot of what we play are like shooters and stuff, right? And so like in terms of what you have to know in a shooter, it's like 3 buttons and then like really good like aim, right? It's like, okay, can I aim well? Can I be strategic? A lot of it's very strategy driven and like your personal placement and whatnot. Fortnite's a unique one where it does a lot with building. If you play a build game mode, Chick and I are getting older, so we don't do that as much as we did when we were young.
Jeez.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
I mean, okay, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that adds a nice little level of complexity to it. But WoW is interesting, I think, in the sense where you run in to fight somebody and you still have 20 buttons on your hotbar.
Mm-hmm.
And
you
so,
do.
yeah. So there's definitely a level of complexity to WoW PvP. It's not my favorite thing. I think I could really get into WoW PvP if I ever really wanted to sit down and like dive into it. I think I would enjoy it. I like Battlegrounds. Like I love like, again, if they gave us a new Warsong Gulch every single expansion, I'd probably just do Battlegrounds forever. I would just do Warsong. I would just do Capture the Flag forever. I love Capture the Flag.
Huh. Interesting.
It is a lot of fun. They do need to. I mean, Blizzard, please hear us. They do need to give us more maps, new maps, something new. I think the last one that they came out with is pretty fun.
Yeah. Did they do a new one for the War Within for PvP?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's a capture the flag one.
Oh, is it really?
It's pretty fun. Yeah, it's nice.
Oh, shoot. I didn't know this. Okay, well, I rescind my previous statement. I will be playing some Capture the Flag all next week.
There you go.
I know what I'm doing. But that's interesting. Yeah, PvP. Because, Paul, you do a bit of PvP, right?
I do. I try to at least hit 1-800 every season. I don't get Gladiator. That's a bit too hard for me, but I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
That makes a lot of sense. Because I've definitely seen you doing PvP quite a bit. You seem to touch, I think, a little bit into all aspects of the game. Whereas I think Chicken and I will like hyper focus on like 1 or 2 things. I know myself specifically. I'm just like, give me raid and give me dungeons. And that's it.
It's pretty accurate.
But Spell, I think I've seen you kind of touch upon like every aspect of WoW. So when you log in for the day, like what excites you the most in World of Warcraft? Like if you have your optimal playing experience, what is like your favorite?
I think my favorite is hopping on with friends and hitting the battlegrounds. That's really my sweet spot. I love doing arenas. Just, climbing, getting conquest gear. That's a lot of fun for me. But I also do enjoy doing, just group content with friends. Achievement hunting. That's a lot of fun. So PvP, achievements, that sounds like a good Sunday.
Yeah, that makes sense. You've dragged me on a couple achievement hunts. I'm not very good at them. I did the one though. I did the one for the mount. What was the horse, the unicorn?
I was so proud of you because that's one of the tougher ones to do, and you were a trooper. I know that you felt like quitting. I know that you probably thought of quitting and deleting the game and throwing your computer away, but you actually went through with it, and that was for Lucid Nightmare is the name of the achievement, I believe.
Yeah,
it gives you a really nice dark unicorn.
Yeah, it's a cool mount. I got it right at the end of Shadowlands, and then Dragonflight came out, and all of a sudden, guess what? There was no more flying, so I had to go ride my dragons, and I had to put my cool unicorn away, and so, but I've been using it now. Now that we're back into the War Within, and we can fly on all of our mounts.
You worked hard for that mount, so use it from time to time at least.
But Spell, I did want to talk to you about something that like I'm kind of really excited for this conversation. This is like what I was thinking about when I asked you to be on the podcast. But you have been working really hard building one of the most incredible guilds on our server. And I don't say that lightly. Like, I really don't say that lightly. I love to brag about our guild. I am to put in perspective, I've been creating WoW content. I have a community on my own Discord where I help new players try to get into WoW and experience the game and connect people. And I would be much more successful on that front if I just finally bit the bullet and said, I'm going to start my own guild. But every time I've thought about doing that, I'm like, no, I can't do it. I love the guild that I am in so much that you have built that, like, if I were to leave that guild to go do something to benefit my content, I would lose something that is very fulfilling for me and something that is very just like energizing for me. That, you know, I actually am afraid that I would just enjoy the game way less. I think I'd become bitter pretty quick in WoW. I really love the community that you've built, and you talked a lot about just the fact that, like, logging with people, doing social things with people, the engagements that you have. You've created a very, very unique guild in a sense where it wasn't built around the desire to raid together. It wasn't built around a specific goal of, like, we want to achieve this thing in the game, but you built a place for people. You built a place for people to exist with each other, to form community, to form friendships. And so I kind of, as we dig into this kind of conversation, I want to talk a little bit about maybe just like the social temperature of WoW and what you experienced there. But let's kind of start the conversation with Astra as a guild. What inspired you with Astra? Like, what led you to form our guild?
First of all, thank you so much. Hearing you talk about it and hearing, others talk about it, it always just warms my heart and makes it feel like it's all worth it. But I formed Astra 3 years ago, and it came from a desire of having, really, it's a simple desire of having a safe space for people, like a community that people can rely on to interact on a daily, have people to run with that think similarly to them.
Mm-hmm.
A space that is a place of learning, that's safe to learn, that is non-toxic, which is sometimes rare to find in gaming communities, because of how competitive it is, right? People get really worked up. And so just having this safe space for people to be able to thrive in is incredibly important to me. And so 3 years ago, we bit the bullet and started Astra, and it's been a journey ever since. And I've loved the majority of that journey. It's not easy,
No.
but it's definitely incredibly rewarding to be able to build a community like the one that we have.
Yeah, I can think of the number of times, because for our listeners, I'm an officer in the guild. I assist you with a lot of what goes on. And the number of times we've been on calls or in group conversations in the officer chat, and I'm just like, Spell, it would be way easier to make this decision over here if you just, like, put a hard line in the sand and took emotion out of it and just, like, cut people out, right? Or just said, if you don't like it, too bad.
Yeah.
But you've always kind of chosen the harder path, I think, of navigating people, trying to, I don't want to say appease, right? Because appease sounds like you're making compromises that people don't enjoy necessarily. But you've added a very human element into being a guild master, a very relational element in being a guild master. That you've always kind of looked at you've made a very conscious effort, I think, to care about the people involved. I think that's the right way I want to word it. You've cared tremendously about the people involved in their guild, just navigating life with them, recognizing the situations that they're all going through, and I think you do a great job keeping up with them, being aware of what our guildmates are going through and what they're Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah.
All right, where'd I drop out?
What they're struggling with.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. You've always just done, like, a great job, though, at, like, supporting our guildmates, but also, like, seeing the things that they want to achieve, the things that they want to work towards, right? Their goals. I get to assist with that, with raiding, with Mythic Dungeons, and helping players. I think last week I was dragging a bunch of players who had never done Mythics before through Mythics. And I think I scared them. I literally like just went in like guild chat and I'm like, hey, who's never done the mythic? I'm taking you with me. And I got like 2 people who are like, I've never done one before. I was like, let's go. We're doing it. And we get in there and they're like warning people because we had to like pug a couple people and it's like a +2. And they're like, warning guys, we've never done this before. I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. I am way overgeared. We'll be fine. But it was a blast. It was so much fun. And they walked away. I think they were a little scared, but they were very excited that they got through and then they got to do it. And so you've created the space for people.
That's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That's what it's all about, right? It's like enabling people to have new experiences that they wouldn't normally be able to have if they were trying to pug, because it's really difficult. That social aspect of it really just adds. I think it adds value to the interaction, to the instance, to whatever you're doing in WoW. Some people prefer having, just a solitary experience, but when you're looking for a community, I think you need to find a community that will enhance your experience. And that's what we're all about. It's just enhancing the player experience, whether it's in, World of Warcraft or whether it's on a daily and with our interactions with them on Discord. It's all about ensuring that they know that we see them, that we hear them, that they have a place, that they have value, and that we're happy to game with them. And I think it means a lot to people. And I know that it's scary for some to go into new content, but we have some amazing folks who are always really happy to mentor new players or even just casual folks. Yeah. I do a bit of everything, but I'm still very casual. I know you don't like me saying that, but I still feel like
have you done your 8s for raid this week?
Well, I'm going to be doing that tomorrow, raid leader. Good. I promise. Yeah.
You know what's funny though? Like we talk about 8s like there's some like high tier content that like the best of the best players do, but I would guarantee like probably a large number of WoW players probably look at us and they're like, yep, that's casual. So it's such a subjective such a subjective term.
Yeah no, for sure. It's just a lot of good people that want the best for everyone, and I wouldn't be able to do it without having an incredibly excellent, and I'm very unbiased when I say that, but an excellent team of officers that help me do it, because it's impossible to do on your own. But I also have a community that leans in, right? We can only provide the structure and then help along with interactions, but like the meat of it, that's the community. It's community led.
Yeah.
And we have a really good community that's willing to share in our ideal of like a better gaming space, a safer gaming space, and then lean in to help with that. Yeah,
I think you've done a great job recently of, because you have an officer team, but it's hard too, because there's a point to which officers really in a guild are committing on high levels to leading something long term and consistently, week to week, whatever it is, whether we're talking about organizing key stuff, whether we're talking about different roles that play into raid leading or other elements of a guild. It is a week to week responsibility. Whereas there's a lot of opportunity that you've started to tap into with our guild members, where you're just saying, hey, if anybody has like ideas of things they want to do with the guild, bring them forward, and I will empower you to like just make that happen, right? So I think we've done things like pumpkin carving contests, game nights, all sorts of just different things that pull our guild together. I think we've been doing. I think Taco's maybe been doing like movie nights or whatever as we've been going through the holidays, and so it's just been really cool to see all the different things that people are helping pull together and make happen and organizing in the guild.
Yeah, it's different. It's different, right? It's different if I come to you and say, hey, Swag, I thought of this one thing that we should do. Let's make it happen. And then if a player comes to me and says, I have this awesome idea. I want to do all this cool stuff and I want to do it with the guild. Can we make it happen? And I'm like, yes, let's do that, because you're so passionate about it.
Yep.
That's going to it's going to be infectious and people just love it. So it's like in real life. It's all about empowering people to do what they want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of, I want to turn a little bit in this conversation, because as we're talking about guilds, we could probably go on forever and ever about what it takes to run a good guild, and I'm sure our listeners would actually love to hear that, and maybe we'll talk even more about it on another future episode. But there's also a level to our guild where we hit a very specific kind of player base. As you said, it's hard to explain because our guild is so diverse, right? We have players who will log in who are so active conversationally with our guild, by the way. Like they're not quietly logging in syncing themselves. They're logging in. Check. Okay, I'm back. This is the weirdest thing.
Welcome back.
Yeah, this is the weirdest thing. Sorry, I'm trying
Do you
to.
think it's your connection?
Yeah, it's my GoXLR. I think it was kind of reading an error before, but all it means is tomorrow I got to go through and manually go and find all these cuts and then just splice them together. But that's fine. That's fine. Anyways, besides me dropping out, what I want to ask you though is just like, what have you learned about our player base, the player base of WoW from our guild? Because our guild is a little bit more unique in who is participating, the activity player base. I think a lot of people will tune into WoW podcasts or look at content creators online or see, or even when they're looking for guilds, most guilds are promoting like, oh yeah, we raid, and that's our whole guild is built around raiding, or our whole guild is built around PvP or Mythic Plus or things like that. And our guild has this high level of diversity that kind of brings a lot of players, I want to say, out of the woodworks, but I think there's a lot more of these players than people realize. I think this might even be the majority of WoW players. But they're not what you traditionally maybe see when you see content creators talk about WoW or showing off their guilds and things like that. And so I want to take a second, kind of like hear from you, like about the community that you. Check one. Okay, I'm back. I saw it happen that time. Oh my gosh. I'm cutting out, so I'm just gonna have spell talk. Spell. What have you learned though ultimately about the player base of WoW as you've been forming this guild, right? Not the players who run mythics all day long, and not the players who run raid nonstop, but you've really tapped into a market of WoW players that maybe don't get the spotlight too often, but absolutely love the game and find community in the game.
I think the biggest thing that I've learned through this experience is it's easy to hear the negative noise that you can get in trade chat, or that you might experience running certain types of content like PvP, which is an area that's very, very competitive. So sometimes the ugliness comes out, even though I have to say the PvP community at large is an amazing community. So I understand and acknowledge that there's, a little bit more somber areas to the WoW community. But I think every one toxic player, there is 5 amazing people that might just quietly be playing the game. And I think what our community has done really well is provide this, this social space for people that can express themselves very freely, that can be themselves very freely. And so that attracts, like-minded folks also in there. And so you'll have people from all skill levels. And I really mean that. Like, we'll have people that sometimes dabble in mythic raiding, or like incredibly high keys, or that are gladiators that are helping out people that have just started 2 days ago. And so there's a plethora of skill levels, just characteristics, people that love playing absolutely different things, that are just coming together and forming this beautiful community that is incredibly diverse. So, I think it's taught me that there's not the one player profile, that everyone deserves to be celebrated. And when you do celebrate their achievements, and when you do invest the time into each player, then they invest that time back into a community that ultimately becomes theirs and reflects that approach and the beauty of it.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I think what's interesting with WoW is that it's a competitive game. Like there's a lot of
Mhm.
really competitive aspects to it, but not everybody who plays the game is playing it for a competitive game, right? I think there's a lot of
Mhm.
people who treat WoW like a cozy game, right? They're coming in, they're farming,
Yeah.
they're doing some quests, they're doing some delves, they're doing some easier dungeons, maybe popping into LFR, potentially maybe finding like a pug for normal, but they're cozy gaming. They're having fun. They're sipping on their drinks and they're just enjoying the game. But then you also have players who are like min-maxing every piece of gear that they can get, right? Trying to spam as many plus 10 dungeons as possible to get gilded crests and fill up their 4 or their 3 slots in the vault. And Chicken and I can pretty confidently say when you're in competitive gaming environments, right? Whether it's like shooters, racing games, fighting games, whatever. When you're in competitive gaming environments, there's a culture that often exists in there where players kind of want that. You might be able to call it toxicity, but it's a exciting element of that competitive environment. But the problem with
Mhm.
WoW though is WoW is a very wide game. And so you
Mhm.
have that culture that exists somewhere where like the raid leader needs to call people out on some like crappy things that are going on in raid, or players are competitive on the DPS meters trying to see who can outdo each other, and they're bragging about it, and they're right like, and that's the hyper competitive aspect of WoW, and for some people that is so stinking fun. Like like
Mhm.
there are seasons where I've loved being in guilds that are like that, where I'm just like, yeah, we're pooping on each other the whole time. It's great, right? But but then there's like a whole group of players in WoW where they're logging in and they're like, I just want to experience Azeroth. I want to go explore this world. I want a taste of everything that is offered here. I want to see all the quests, all the NPCs, all the stories. And then they kind of go, oh, I want to get some gear. Oh, Mythic Plus looks cool, but I'm too nervous to do that, right? And they go into their first Mythic Plus dungeon. They're real nervous. They've just kind of been exploring the world, and it's a +2, right? And they're so excited. Like, I got into a +2. It's the lowest level dungeon, and they accidentally don't kick a mob or something on it. They don't interrupt a spell, and all of a sudden, like, the whole group's calling them names, right? And like going like, "Are you
Mhm.
dumb? Are you stupid? Do you not know what you're doing? What are those talents?" Right? And now the player is just like feeling like the crappiest person in the world, right? So there's this like
Mhm.
leakage. There's like right, you kind of have this the competitive environment, which can be fun for some, but it like leaks. It like seeps into the other aspects of WoW and creates this environment that actually like doesn't give people a chance to experience some of what WoW has to offer. And I think that's what you've done such an amazing job with the community of like giving people a chance to experience that.
And I think you're right. I think I always say this. There's no right way of playing WoW. It all depends on what speaks to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of communities like us out there, but there's also communities that are different, and that's completely okay. It all depends on what you're looking for, what kind of experience you want to have out of this game. I think we've tapped into a space, or basically what we call a safe space, right? A safe space of learning, a safe space of diversity and being however you want to be, and do whatever you want to do
Mm-hmm.
with just really cool people. But the competitive spaces also need to exist. Do I wish that they were, a little bit more tame in terms of their approach to how they treat each other? Yes. But again, I'm not here to dictate how other people
Mm-hmm.
should be playing the game. I respect all of it. I think there's value in everything and every approach. But what Astra has been able to do, I think, is important because we do cater to players that look for maybe like a safer environment than that, and something that's a little bit, just maybe a little bit nicer in approach.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's a great way. What ultimately got me, and I'm sorry, Chicken, I know we've been talking a bunch. We got to get to your hot take in just a second. What ultimately I think got me in the guild was I was in the point in life where I just wasn't like enjoying the game. If I'm being totally transparent, I was going through a divorce at the time. It was rough. It was something that kind of blindsided me out of nowhere, and I lost all enjoyment of everything I did in my life. Like there was not like anything I did was just boring to me. Like I log into something, I was raiding with a guild, and it was a nice guild. I still keep in touch with them a bit. It was a nice guild, but I remember at raid night, it was like 2 nights in a row, like an hour into raid, I just logged out. I didn't even tell anybody. I just logged out, and I just shut off my computer. Didn't even open Discord because I knew they were going to message me asking like what was up, if I was okay, right? Like they knew I was going through some stuff, but it's just I just lost like all enjoyment of everything. And I remember one day, for whatever reason, despite not enjoying it, for whatever reason, I'm testing out like a holy paladin to see if I like it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna look and see if there's anybody rating normal right now that I can just pop in with and see what my numbers look like. See if I'm like holding up. And so I joined, I think, Astra for their first ever raid with that team. I think you guys had done some raiding before, but this was like the relaunch, right? So first relaunch of raiding. And I go in, and Lex is raid leading, and he's going through all the mechanics, and he's being so gentle and like considerate for everybody. And half the raid team had not even raided before, like they're brand new to it. I'm pretty sure, looking back through conversation logs, you were dragged to that raid kicking and screaming spell. I think you had to be bribed. You had to be bribed to be there. They were like, "Spell, you're the guild master. You probably should be at this."
Probably.
Yeah, and so but I remember just showing up, and just like everybody was just so like joyful. They were having fun. They're nervous, but the community of the raid team was so important to everybody. And I just like, after that raid, I was like, can I come back? Can I come back? And there was a period where like I kind of just stopped raiding with my actual like guild and just started raiding with you guys. And I was like, okay, I gotta join them. I need to like just fully bite the bullet and jump in. And so I did. And I have not regretted it ever since. I'm sure you have. I'm sure you've regretted my shenanigans, but I've never regretted it.
Not at all. Not at all. It's been a pleasure to have you in the guild, and it's been years now to think about it.
Yes.
But yeah. We've definitely grown as a community ever since. I think it changes on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, but that's the beauty of it, right? We're all in this adventure together. We appreciate each other on a human level. We're all friends. We've got this common purpose. We just want to make other people's lives a little bit better. Just contribute in any which way we can, and that makes a world of difference. And through you, we met Chicken, and so there's no going back from that. That's like a whole experience on itself. We adore him. Yep, for sure. So it's been good.
So last thing I want to say, on this topic of the guild and just player experiences in the game. If you feel like you resonate, if you're listening to the podcast right now and you're like, man, I resonate with what Astra is about as a guild, I want to have that connection with people. I'm looking for a space where I can learn how to do some Mythic Plus dungeons in a safe environment. I want to learn how to raid. I want to just do some cozy gamer stuff. I want to go farm stuff. I want to go do achievement hunting and just have friends. I just want to have friends that I can be surrounded with who are encouraging me in the stuff that I try and WoW. If you're looking for that, there's always a link to my personal Discord in the description here on the podcast. When you get to that Discord, in the WoW general chat, just tag myself or Spell even, and just ask. Just be like, hey, I saw on the pod you guys talked about Astra. Can I join? And we'll get you in there.
Yep.
It is for NA only, though. So for our EU listeners, sucks to suck. But yeah, I mean, if we get big enough, maybe Astra EU will one day.
Astra EU, that'd be something.
Perfect. Chicken, you got a hot take today for us, don't you?
I do, and sorry, I'm not gonna lie. There was a lot of times where I was like, oh, I kind of have something to say here, but I thoroughly enjoyed listening to that conversation more than I would have enjoyed interjecting to it. So I just want to say that was honestly really good dialogue between the two of you, and I almost almost can't wait to listen back to it. So, and I think you guys talked about a really good topic. I mean, I tried to look it up, and that was the other reason why I wasn't really talking. I was like sternly trying to look up a stat on if I could see if WoW tracks how many people are in guilds versus aren't in guilds, but I couldn't find it. But it's not important. But I would hard say that there's more players that play WoW. Well, I don't want to say that. I would say there's probably a significant amount of people that play WoW that aren't in guilds, right?
Yeah.
And I think after hearing the conversation that you two had, I think it would be pretty apparent on the reason why you should join a guild, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think that was just really good dialogue. I almost want to like congratulate you guys, like give me an award. I don't know, like what do I do now? Like, can we even top that?
You are.
I love that though. That's a good message. Join a guild. Join any guild. Join something that works for you. I think.
Yeah.
Chicken. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And real quick before we get into your hot take, I do think you're correct. By the way, I 100% believe that WoW is designed by the developers to be best in a guild. If you are not in a guild, I can confidently say that you are not able to get as much out of World of Warcraft as you would like to get out of World of Warcraft. There's more, even if you're a solo player. And Spell, I'm not going to name names because I think they like to be anonymous, but you and I both know a solo player pretty dang well. And I can say one thing for sure, that even for a solo player, being in our guild is a benefit for his experience.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
I strongly believe that. That's true. Mm-hmm.
It is. Even just to have those moments once a year where you want somebody to help you with something, or what really happens, what I find with solo players is you discover something and you got to show somebody.
Yes, you got to share. Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think
you're onto something there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what if instead of player housing, we have like a guild hall?
Oh my gosh.
Middle of
Dornogal, that, actually.
Guild Hall in Dornogal.
I would love that. Do you remember in Dragonflight when we found in that inn the statue and then you had to bow to it and it opened a secret space?
Mm-hmm. I found that like
Guild Hall for a while.
Well, I think I found that like really early on because somebody had like hinted it to me like the first couple days of the expansion. And it was really cool because no one knew about it but us. And then I think like after the first week, somebody like leaked it on like TikTok or something, and all of a sudden everybody knew it was there. And I was like, no, but it was a cool spot. That was cool. Yeah, if we could decorate the guild hall. Like imagine if like every time we like killed like a end of raid boss, like an AOTC boss, you got like a like some type of like reward that you could like display or other things. I don't know. But that'd be cool. That'd be cool. Spill, you do track some information on our guild, right? I think you look at some trackers online of how our guild's doing.
I do. I track our attrition rate, our join rate, tenure. We have the majority of our population is pretty tenured, which basically means that they join us and then don't leave for a while. But yes, unfortunately, Blizzard hasn't really built mechanisms to track that, so you have to rely on add-ons to kind of help you with that. But there are ways out there, yeah. Yeah,
we were joking, I think, before the podcast that because our guild is always teetering on the like max capacity line, that every few months you have to go through and like clear out everybody who hasn't like logged on in 3 months, and then you said you like message them so they don't like feel bad.
Yeah, we do clear alts that are not active just because we have to make space.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also want to reflect the total population of players in the guild as like active players versus it being a parking lot.
Yeah.
And so we have to unfortunately remove some folks, but then it's open door policy. As soon as they're active again, they're welcome back.
Absolutely. I think that's where the Discord comes into play a lot, where like the moment they're back, it's like, hey guys, I'm back, get me in, and then they're back in.
Exactly.
When are they going to make guilds? Like, well, I guess they can't, but it would be nice, or at least on the back end side of it, having guilds be maybe more like Warband, where maybe like now because I do know people want to have characters in different guilds, so not necessarily saying all your characters have to be in one guild, but like per guild that your characters are in. So like I have a bunch in Astra, and then I have one character I think in Astra 3, right? But all my characters that are in Astra should just count as one slot, right? Like one slot for my account in
for your
Astra.
account. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
That
that
makes
way,
sense.
like for example, one of our officers, a guy named Z, amazing dude. But actually, the top player in the world for making paladin alts. I don't know if
Mhm.
Oh my
that's actually probably not true,
gosh.
but the dude's got like 30 paladin alts. If I said, "Hey Z, you want to play something else?" He'd be like, "No." Like he would just say that. He'd be like, "No."
Nope.
It's there's two questions for me. One, PvP? No. Want to play anything other than paladin? No.
No.
But in his defense, though, dude, the guy is goaded on a paladin.
Yeah, he
like
is.
Yeah.
busted good. But I do think though that it should be an account number, not necessarily just like a character number for the guild.
I agree. It would make things so much simpler.
And that way you could kick entire people out at a time.
I
Oh
know.
my goodness.
true.
Hey, got to use your connections, man.
Dude, there have been, I don't know if you've caught them, Ching. There have been a couple awkward moments in the guild where like somebody has to be removed, and you get like all but one of their characters, and then they find the one that's still in the guild like 4 months later, and they log in and start like crap talking everybody.
Spamming
It gets
chat.
real
with
awkward. It
profanity.
gets real awkward. But you
that
gotta.
makes sense.
We're getting close to time, so we got a few more topics to go through. So, Chicken, let's jump into your hot take.
Yeah, sure. We can talk about it real quick. I'm not sure. This one was just one that I kind of thought of. I think it's some conversations that we've had before, Swag. Definitely off the podcast, just like a long time ago. And I think this resonated with you a good bit, especially when they, added some recent changes. I think that was within the War Within. I can't remember when it was added. So the hot take was, should WoW remove the faction war? And if you're not familiar, obviously there's two factions. You have the Alliance, you have the Horde, and basically, I don't know lore, but they're not happy with each other and they're fighting. And yeah, so should WoW just remove that? How do they go about removing it? That is the hot take. So I'll open it up.
Yeah, I mean, I'll dive into it for a second, and Spell, feel free to chime in on your thoughts too. I think it's a fascinating hot take for Chicken to bring, by the way. And this isn't an accusatory statement I'm going to make. This is because I want the listeners to be aware of context. Chicken, you've never played in an expansion that had faction conflict in it, correct? Because Shadowlands notoriously didn't, Dragonflight notoriously didn't.
Yeah,
and
so
so far, the War Within has like lightly touched it on some of the story, but like it's not even really faction conflict as much as it is like, ew, orc gross, right?
Yeah, right.
Like that's about the extent of it, right? I do think that WoW's story has historically been at its best when there's faction conflict involved.
Okay.
I think the most memorable moments are faction conflict, and it's that weaving between faction conflict and faction unity that makes it so good, right? Because when all the races work together all the time and there's constant unity 24/7, that just gets old and stale, right? Like it doesn't. It just feels too flat. And if it's war all the time, then it also doesn't feel great. But it needs to be valuable, right? So like for example, BFA, when it's like, yeah, let's just go burn down each other's cities because why not? I mean, like, right, like when you have Sylvanas who's just killing people for the sake, supposedly, of sending souls to the jailer, that's weird. That's a weird that faction conflict doesn't need to exist. On the other hand, you had Garrosh, who is a very controversial character in WoW, but actually, in terms of being a villain, is actually a really loved villain. Not a sympathized with villain, but a villain that people are like, oh yeah, we hated that guy. In like the right kind of way, hated him. And one of the things that Garrosh did really well early on is he comes in with this kind of like heavy distrust of the Alliance. He comes in with this background of just like watching the Horde struggle, right? And so wanting to see the Horde be successful and do well, especially the orcs in the Horde. And to that front, he looks at Orgrimmar, which is like in the middle of this barren wasteland, and then sees that right next door, a bunch of night elves have tons of trees and resources that the orcs could use to benefit their people, right? To make sure people weren't starving, to make sure people weren't, just living in the sun, right? And all this stuff. And And that type of faction conflict I love, right? And that's what Warsong Gulch, by the way, as a battleground is about. It's about the tension between where Orgrimmar is seated and then whatever the forest is right next to it. I can't remember the name of it. But this is the Warsong Gulch where that occurs. I love that faction conflict because it's resources, right? Faction conflicts over resources I think are fun. And that feels like a very natural way that then players, because again, that little competition in WoW is good. WoW is at its best when there's some competition involved. It can't be fully a cozy game. It needs some competitive aspects. And there's something fun where players feel that little faction conflict. I think guilds being faction neutral actually helps kind of still create those safe pockets where it's like, oh, hey, we're even though we're at faction conflict, we're unified as a guild, right? Our guild kind of crosses that border for us, but then we're still an alliance player or we're still a horde player externally from the guild. And those moments are the best, right? Like Wrath was faction heavy, BC, Vanilla for sure. Pandaria was very faction heavy, and I think what all of those did really well was the faction conflict didn't have to be the forefront of the story. It wasn't like BFA. Pandaria got close to it. BFA though put it right on the front line. It was like it's faction conflict and nothing but faction conflict, and that gets kind of weird because you start to get weird storylines in there that try and justify that much faction conflict. I think it's more fun when it's just like simple resources of like, hey, we need to go kill the Lich King. But we don't still fully trust each other, so we're kind of questing separately, and we're still kind of doing stuff to sabotage each other. Or we caught spies, we caught some alliance spies, right? Those kind of things, those I think are really cool, and I think they build the world.
The whole faction aspect is excellent in PvP. It's very motivating.
Very motivating. Very, very motivating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I think you bring up some good points, Josh.
Wow, doxed. I'm doxed. Oh my gosh! Oh shoot, the FBI's here.
Oh no!
Just kidding.
Oh my goodness. And I only doxed you because I'm like, oh my goodness, this sounds like I'm having like a real life personal conversation with you, where you talk about the storyline of WoW, and I'm like, hey, what's that painting on the wall? That looks kind of cute. And I don't even understand like a second of what you said.
Yep, that's about right.
But I think the notion is basically like, yeah, it seems like, and maybe it's just because I personally haven't been in an expansion where it has been relevant because, I guess I did Mop Remix, but I'm pretty sure I leveled, like, I did storyline for like a day, and then once I could raid, I grinded to max rank.
Mm-hmm.
So even then it was like, I didn't even really care about the storyline. So it sounds like it does make sense, but unfortunately I don't know if I can really comment on it.
No, that makes sense. I do think at the end of the day, it's one of those moments where you gotta step back and go, this is World of Warcraft, and we need a little Warcrafting. Happening. But again, it's such a core story element, right? Like orcs and humans at war with each other is the core of WoW, right? That's where it all started. Which, by the way, I think for that 30th anniversary event, I think they might announce a new Warcraft game.
Oh, you think?
Oh,
yeah. And I don't mean like hey, they're going to do a new mobile game. I mean, it might be mobile, but I think like an actual like RTS Warcraft game.
Yeah.
Whether a remake or like a Warcraft 4 altogether. I hope a 4. That'd be kind of sick because that gives them great story stuff. Even though we're in the middle of a trilogy right now, so I don't know how that's gonna work.
Talking about mobile games, have you played Rumble?
I did. Rumble's fun. I played it a bunch when it first came out. I went on like a work trip for a week, and so like I was playing it on the plane. I was playing on the plane for a while. But it's actually genuinely fun. It's not my style of game to play a lot of, but what I did play was really enjoyable.
Yeah, it's a fun little game.
I'm still trying to get Chicken into Hearthstone though. We'll see if it works out.
It's the best. I love it.
I just can't do it. I'm not. No. I don't like mana TCGs. I just don't. I just can't get into them.
Chicken. I don't play Hearthstone, but Chicken's a huge like card game guy, And so
Yeah,
like
TCG. Yeah.
he loves his TCGs. And so I just, one of these days, he's just gonna go play with Fat Hall for 8 hours on end or something.
Oh my goodness. I've definitely played Hearthstone. I don't know. I just really struggle with mana based TCGs. I just can't do it. I don't know what it is.
I mean, this is the dude who you were playing the Pokemon online TCG for like months.
Oh yeah, I've played Pokemon Online TCG. I played Yu-Gi-Oh for like almost like half a decade. Yeah, I was big into TCGs. I just can't get into Hearthstone. I don't know what it is. I just can't get into it.
I get that.
Did you see the TCG shop simulator that everyone's obsessed about?
Oh my
Yes,
goodness!
I did. It's so funny.
Oh my gosh!
People are obsessed with it.
Yeah, it's nuts. Oh my gosh.
All right, we got a couple questions from our viewers or listeners. We don't have video yet, but it might be coming soon. However, we got a couple questions from our listeners. So question 1 coming from Ambro. And by the way, these questions are coming from our Discord server. There's a link in the description. You go to the questions for the pod channel and drop them in there, and then we'll take those questions and throw them in our show notes every week. Or if you want to, another way that you can send questions in is through commenting on our videos. Those ones are a little bit tougher because it's hard for us to go back, especially if you're leaving a comment from like an older episode. It's a little bit harder for us to track all of those down. The last way you can do it is in our descriptions. You'll see it says send a text. I believe it says send a text. And if you open that up, shoot us a text, it will send it to our podcast host. And so we'll see that text come through on our end. It doesn't text our phones. It just comes through the podcast host. And we'll get those questions. The only thing we ask there is if you do it, either if you leave it as a comment on Spotify or you do it through the text, just comment your WoW character name as well, just so we have a point of reference of who's asking that question, because we don't see any information from those two sources.
Nope.
So with that said, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, we do get it on that one phone. You know, we both share that phone, and then we take a fire pole down to a cave, and then never mind.
What?
Terrible
What?
reference.
No,
Terrible reference.
Anyways, so first question's coming in from Ambro, and they asked, does redoing quests on an alt add those additional turn-ins to your Warbound Renown? If I want to get Dorn to Renown 12 for the plus 10 professions items, can I just run the Isle of Dorn quests again on my freshly dinged DK? I don't know if I actually truly know the answer to this question. I believe the storyline quests do not reward Renown for repeating the same one. I think it will say on there, when you do it, it'll say on there, already completed by your Warband.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that is correct.
Yes. There was something going on where you could use multiple accounts to farm extra rep for the Severed Threads factions.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe that was a bug with how if you had two separate accounts altogether that you were using at the exact same time that were tied to the same BNet account, it would update it too fast before it would recognize you already did that quest.
Yeah.
So, but people got banned for that. So don't replicate.
Don't do that then.
Don't try to replicate that one. But as far as I'm aware, you can't just come back and do the exact same Isle of Dorn quest. I think you have to go farm. Now, what you can do is, let's say you do the story mode on your mage. Let's say your main is a mage, right? You do the whole story mode and you finish and it's level 80, and now you're like, okay, I want to level up a shaman through the through Khazalgar. You could go to the Isle of Dorn and just do all the like world quests in the Isle of Dorn and the side quests and all that stuff. Do all the side quests in Dorn, and because you didn't do those side quests on your main and you just did the story quests on your main, you can level up that shaman or your DK in this case or whatever it is. You can level them up doing those side quests. So you get your character to the max level and simultaneously get all of that extra rep for Renown. But Spell, do you have any tricks? I know you're probably a little bit more aware of this than we are.
Oh, 100%.
I just do keys.
Yep.
And really, I have to say, I'm a little ashamed to admit that this go around, I actually haven't even completed Lore Master for The War Within. because I've just been farming so much.
That
I've
makes
been
sense.
hitting that auction house, flipping stuff, making gold, because it's been an amazing expansion to make gold.
Also a good one for
Um,
spending gold.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah, really.
Mm-hmm.
Spending money
Goodness.
also. But yeah, I don't know, but it's a really good question though. Now I'm curious.
Yeah, I believe you can only do them all once per character.
Yeah, I think you can.
The world quests you can do though across the board on all your characters. So those I think will always give renown, no matter which character does it. But the story quests and I think the side quests, just do it on the first time through. But you'll see it. If you go over there to the Isle of Dorn on your freshly dinged DK and you open up the quest, it will tell you what rewards you're getting from it, and it should say on it done by like Warband already or something. And then see if it offers any renown. It might still offer renown. It might just not. That offer might just not be there anymore. So take a look at that. Let us know. But that's how you would find out. So even though I don't have the exact answer, I can at least tell you how they figured it out. Here's our second question. This one's a little bit more complicated. Chicken, you're a newer player to WoW compared to Spellerai. So I'd love to hear your response to this question, maybe before I chime in. I've thoughts on it, but I'd love to hear your impression.
Oh, do you want me to read it then?
Sure. Why don't you read it?
Sure. It's from Biggin, and that is actually his name. It's not just the fact that this is a loaded question. The question is, with WoW being 20 years old, I wonder if the game still has the big WoW factor, pun intended, like vanilla and past expansions did. Like with vanilla, it was the climb to 60 to be able to get to endgame content that had a WoW factor in it itself. Seeing people with their mounts and knowing that, hey, they got a mount clearing dead mines and stockades for the first time, obviously some big things that to me don't mean anything because I never played them. So the question is, what with the direction that retail is going now, fast-paced leveling, getting some feats that was once awesome, like getting your mount so early, is it still? Let me wait. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It basically is it like, hey, what's the WoW factor for new players, right? Sorry, it was kind of worded.
Is WoW still fun and exciting for a first time player walking in?
Yeah, so you want my opinion?
Yeah, I think I know what you're probably gonna say, but it's good.
So I think I talked about this before, and I think I actually talked about it when we talked about free to play, because I think that's one of the harder things when it comes to WoW is only being able to level to 20 as a free to play kind of deal, and as like like it's kind of fun, like you kind of dip your toes into leveling, but like, do you really get to dip your toes into anything else? And in terms of is WoW, what's the WoW factor for new players? I don't think there is one for a brand spanking new player, unless you kind of just want to dump some money into it and get like a level boost. I think, it's kind of a grind. If you're really into storyline, I think that's kind of, a really fun thing that you can get into, kind of the lore behind WoW. If you're like a swag and you're just really into that, I think you can have some fun there. But if you're looking for like end game kind of skill based content, like I just think you got to kind of grind through it. And I'll be honest, that's kind of what drove me away. It took me, I think, 3 or 4 times to get hooked on it.
Yeah, I dragged Chicken and Brunick, by the way. If you're in our Discord and you know Brunick, both of those guys. I think it took me like 2 or 3 attempts in WoW where I kept pulling you back in. I was like, "We'll try it again.
Yeah,
let's get to max level. Let's do it." And I'm like a freaking gremlin.
Yeah, really. Yeah, so I think it's hard. I think it all depends on the kind of player that you are. Like I said, if you're really into storyline and questing, then I think the beginning will be kind of easy for you. But if questing, getting to level 20 is cool, and then after that you're like, oh wait, I have to level up 60 more times to get to anything like raid or dungeons or anything that people are telling me is the best part of WoW, and now I'm like, I have to basically grind for a month to get there. So personally, I think that's something that they should change about like the free to play area. I think they should involve some of that kind of, dungeons and kind of factor into that, because I think it grabs people.
Mhm.
But in terms of wow factors, I think they do have wow factors. I think you just got to wait for them.
Yeah. Spell, what are your thoughts?
I think Chicken makes a few really valid points. In terms of saying, it depends what kind of gamer you are and what your expectation from the game is.
Mm-hmm.
I think one element that I wish Blizzard would do more of is incorporate. So they pour all of this money into these massive, amazing expansions and zones, and that are really, really nice. And then when the next expansion hits, they completely forget about it.
Yep.
And I wish that they incorporated that more into the new player experience, because it really is important.
I do believe, by the way, Dragon Isles is the current leveling for new players.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But then, Shadowlands, the BFA zone, all of that is kind of forgotten about.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But Shadowlands probably should be. Let me just be clear. We could nuke that. We could nuke that.
Gosh, dude, come on.
I think you have some community members that would disagree with that take, Swag.
That's a,
I think X would disagree with you.
Yeah, he would. He 100% would.
But I think for a player like me, I love the, I love leveling with friends. I love that social aspect to it. Just exploring. I sometimes do it through professions, and I find that super cozy. But so I enjoy it, but I also understand that it doesn't speak to everyone, because some people just want that end game content, and then getting there and getting enough gear and getting good enough with your class to be able to play end game content. It sometimes takes a minute.
Yeah. I think I bring a weird perspective to this, because I've been playing, I think, 18 years. I've been playing WoW for a hot minute. I wish I started 2 years sooner. I wish I could fit the full 20 in, but I've been playing for 18 years, and I remember early WoW, end of Classic, but mainly BC and Wrath. There's something about the design of the game at the time where leveling really wasn't that different than endgame. Endgame opened up some cool stuff like the crazy gearing and doing raid, the big raid groups. That was cool for endgame, and it had stuff. But there was a long while where you would I never felt like I was missing out because I wasn't at end game content. I wasn't at max level. I remember the first time I walked into a dungeon, and it was hard, right? I'm level 15, maybe not even 15. I think I was level 13, whatever the minimal was to get into Rage Fire Chasms in the middle of Orgrimmar. I made it to the minimum. I was kind of in a guild because a friend had got me into the game, and so we got a few players from the guild to go do this dungeon. Because at that time, it was more like Mythic Plus, where you actually have to go find the players. And there wasn't a tool for finding players. You literally just went into trade chat, and you're or you went to the zone that the dungeon was in and hopped in general chat. And you're like, anybody want to do Stockade?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And you had to find players. And there were times where you'd be and dungeons didn't scale back then. So
it's in Classic, the Classic experience,
exactly like Classic, right? And so as you got stronger, the dungeon got easier. In fact, you could just bring your friend who was way over gear or way out leveled, and they just carry you through it. And I think there might have been some bit of how XP worked that kind of made it not totally worthwhile to do that, but I don't fully remember. But it's no different, I think, than modern day Mythic Plus, where somebody doing if I hop into a +2 with somebody and I'm at 625 eye level or something, I'm plowing through that +2 helping other players, right? So there's not it's not really that different. But what made that really cool then was all of a sudden leveling was a very rewarding gameplay experience on its own. Quests were difficult. You were trying to go and be okay, how do I kill these things without them also killing me? How do I sneak around this stuff without them catching me? Because if they catch me, I'm dead, right? Everything killed you in Classic. Everything could kill you in Classic. And I think that was very rewarding gameplay. And the problem is, right now, is that everything's been sterilized because of people like me. I don't want to go through that experience every time I want to try out a new character, right? Nowadays, I just want to do Mythic Plus. I just want to raid. And so I want to go make my alt, and I want to power level my alt. In fact, I don't even want to level my alt. I want to just ask Spell to go kill a bunch of elite mobs in a random zone so that I'll level up while I stand there and work in Photoshop or something for a YouTube thumbnail.
Memories.
Right, and the funny thing is, it's not even a joke. That's real. Like, this happened multiple times. Yeah, and right, and so we just want to power through as fast as we can. And so the players of WoW have begged and begged and begged for easier and easier leveling. And all of a sudden now, the leveling experience is so neutered. Like, it's so just sterilized of any character that I just don't think it's fun, right? So, like, a new player gets in, and the first thing they go is to Tutorial Island. And on the like, if I explain Tutorial Island to somebody, they're like, oh, that's cool. It has, like, an experience for you to learn your class and how to play the game. Except it's so hand-holdy that it's just not rewarding. Like, there's something cooler about, like, again, I'm not a classic fanboy, but I think there are elements of how WoW launched that we've lost over time. And one of those is, like, you log in and you're an absolute nobody, and you walk up to an orc, and he's like, go kill some scorpions. And you're like, what the... Where are scorpions? And you're just, there's no other explanation. It's just like, there's some scorpions, go kill them. And you're looking around, you're like, oh wait, I see them. There's some scorpions over there. And you start running towards them, and you're like, okay, how do I attack them? And you like click the scorpion, and you like look at your bar, and you're like, okay, I think I figured it out. And there's something really cool where they just feed you a little bit at a time, but they're not holding your hand. They're just kind of feeding you a little bit, and you progress and you grow into this hero, rather than just dropping on an island and killing a skeleton dragon, right? Like, you kind of build it up, and this world builds. But again, WoW's 20 years old, and it's got expansion after expansion after expansion that kind of just, it's getting bloated. So really the questions, I mean, yes, Biggin is right. His comment's right. That WoW factor is kind of gone right now until you get to max level, until you get to the competitive stuff. The world is still cool. Like, when you go out into the world, I think dragon riding right now is really cool. The Dragon Isles are a great first-time experience. The world is still cool, but there is just a bit of the game right now that is, we talked about the faction conflict. There was something fun where you'd be walking along, and I mentioned earlier, but you see somebody riding their mount down the road, and you go hide real quick because you don't want them to see you, because if they see you, they can come kill you if you're on a PvP server. But even still,
they have a skull. They have a skull.
Yeah, they have a skull next to their name, so you know they're deadly. And the fact that they're on a mount, right? You see people on a mount running around, and you're level 15, and you've been walking everywhere, and you're like, how the heck do I get one of those? And you go to Wowhead or Thoughtbot at the time, and you look it up, and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to be level 40 for that? And you work up there, and you save your gold because you want to buy your first mount. And now the game is like, oh wow, you're level 10. Here's a dragon. And so, like... there's elements. I think it's tough. I wish at some point, maybe after this current trilogy we're on, I hope Blizzard does something where they just redo entirely the leveling experience. But again though, right? Like, players love the anniversary event right now because you can get like 40% more XP or something total if you stack all your buffs, right? And we talked about it on the podcast a few weeks ago. So how do you make everybody happy, right? Like, how do you keep the WoW player base happy? Because you want to retain players, and also make a new player experience rewarding. And you can't separate them, because if you separate them from each other, then the new player experience can't be rewarding, because you're taking the world out of World of Warcraft. Because all of a sudden everybody's gone. Like, you're leveling in total isolation.
Well, also because I think WoW's success stems from the old timers that are still holding on to that classic vibe, and so it's dangerous for Blizzard to play around too much with that, because they're going to lose their core fan base. But I heard through the grapevine that they were maybe tinkering with their engine, which that makes me hopeful. I like the sound of that.
Very hopeful that maybe future things open up doors. I wouldn't be upset if they just redid a new 1 to 6 level experience. Again, I think right now, right, like, if you're leveling and you get into a dungeon, it's so easy. You just, especially if you're level 10, right? My favorite is going to the dungeon at level 10 as a healer and just out DPS everybody, right? Like you just like slam spells and you do crazy damage, and you're the healer, and you're like, hey, look at me, I have one healing spell and one attack spell, and I'm blowing everybody away. You feel like you get weaker as you level up. It's a weird experience, and so that you miss that day of like, hey, I'm 17, I'm going into Shadowfang Keep. And like, this is exciting dungeon content for me. I know there's loot in there I want. There's 3 items. I'm trying to get them as I'm leveling up. So I'm going to run this as much as I can to get experience and get those 3 items. I want Arugel's robes, right? Like, I believe those were the items that dropped off the final boss that I would always try to get on my Warlock. But it's just like, it made every part of WoW feel rewarding. So the question ultimately is, and to answer your question, Biggin, that I think Blizzard needs answers, how do you make leveling a fun gameplay experience that's rewarding on its own and fully encapsulated on its own, right? Not relying on, well, this is just to get you to the end, right? No, how do you make it fun? Well, at the same time, the players who love end-game competitive content, how do you allow them to also get as much out of the end-game competitive content as they can, which includes allowing them to easily swap up their classes if they want to? But I think that's all we have time for. Yeah, we're running a little tight, and I know we've been going way over on our podcast, so we're going to be wrapping up here. Spell, again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. You're an amazing friend and guild master, and watching what you do with the WoW community has been absolutely incredible. You are one of the unsung heroes of World of Warcraft, and I think you just do so much behind the scenes that people don't realize how much of an impact you've had, I think, on the player base of this game.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. Thank you so much. And I wouldn't be able to do it without folks like you and Chicken really helping and leaning in. But thank you for having me. This was great. I had a great time, guys.
Of course. Thank you again. And for everybody who's listening, if you want to find out more about Spell's Guild Astra, feel free to jump on our Discord or leave comments, questions for future episodes, and we will see you next week.